hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, you are too arrogant. If you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power, and I'll place it in the hands of a nation that doesn't even know my name. Be still and know that I'm God.
Welcome again to Street Talk. My name is Ahmad Shakaraka, and on Street Talk we deal with political, social, and economics here in Michigan, the U.S., and abroad. Now joining me tonight,
Dennis Burnside.
Charles Thomas.
Okay, man, we got a lot to cover, but you was telling me something about a black lady you want to
this woman might surprise you. I think she was one of the most consequential women of the 20th century.
Okay.
But she's not one that comes to mind when you start looking at historical or political people.
Okay.
But she was all of those things, and she was probably one of the most amalgamizing human beings of the 20th century when it comes to bringing together the culture and the political drive of African Americans here in the United States, and that's the great Mahalia Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
A great woman.
Yeah.
She was born around 1911, 1912 in New Orleans, the granddaughter of enslaved Africans, very poor, without very much in terms of material means, but she had this great voice. And like almost all of us, was raised in church, and she had a voice that amused the older people. She was 4 years old singing solos, and she had a head full of hair, and she really let it go. And they thought that little Mahalia had a nice little voice, and that was all that was to it. But within that, she had this spiritual connection to her faith that could not be shaken by any desire or any lack of material means. And she also, as she was raised in this Baptist church, couldn't help but hear the music from the Sanctified Church, which is right next door to her family.
Okay.
And, any African American watching the show knows that in our history there was a little bit of a schism in the way black people worshiped. You had the holy rollers, the ones who get happy, sing loud, go into this ecstatic thing they call getting happy. And that was the sanctified folks. And in my own family, my mother was a Pentecostal woman. And then you had the more sedate Methodists and Baptists, of which she was a Baptist, who sang in a more traditional gospel means that came out of the enslavement period. Well, she felt that music coming from the church down the street. She also felt the music that came from the community. She knew many of the blues singers and the jazz singers in New Orleans, which is where it all started. And she was singing at age 14, and she was heard by some musicians who were in Ma Rainey's band. The blues singer at that time, and they asked her to come tour, and she wouldn't do it because she felt that was sinful music. She was heavily influenced by the great jazz singer, a blues singer rather, Bessie Smith, but she couldn't go along that route. She wanted to stay in the gospel. And as she moved along in her life, she had what she called her fish and bread period, where she pretty much sang for food, because her gospel audience were poor black people who didn't have money to spend on music. And so she did jobs like babysat and clean houses during the day, sang for fish and bread in the evening, And her popularity swelled to the point when she moved to Chicago, she was kind of well known.
Mm-hmm.
From there, she began to sing at funerals and political meetings and things where black people gathered. And she was a voice that everyone loved. Well, as her career built and she ran smack dab into Jim Crow, she found herself singing to sold out concerts as her reputation grew, but she couldn't stay in hotels. She'd have to spend the night in her car.
Yep.
She couldn't have good meals, et cetera, et cetera. And it wasn't until after World War II, around 1947, she got her first record deal. Her first 2 records sold middling amounts, but her third album had a song, the name escapes me now, I'm Coming Up the Mountain or something like that.
Okay.
And it was a monster hit. A white DJ in Chicago named Studs Terkel, the man I admire, he's a great writer too, he's been gone for a few decades now, heard her and played her music on his radio station. The black DJs are playing her music on the black music circuit all across the country now. And back when a gospel hit record would sell 100,000 copies, she sold 2 million. And from there, she was known worldwide. She went on the tour into France. She was the first gospel singer to ever sing at Carnegie Hall. And as she's doing all of these things that most people would let go to their head, she never forgot where she came from. She always kept it close to her people, and she always remembered those slights and hungry days, and even then still living in Jim Crow. And she moved into the civil rights movement and became a key contributor and personal friend of Dr. Martin Luther King. And one of the most iconic things she ever did, which to me is kind of trivial when you look at her record in terms of her music and her contributions to the civil rights era. But she was in Washington, D.C. in 1963 on the March on Washington. And as Martin was delivering his remarks, he wasn't really moving the crowd.
Right.
He was giving a speech that was written for him, and it wasn't objectionable, but it just wasn't what people came to hear. And Mahalia said, "Tell him about the dream, Martin." And that's when Dr. King went into that "I Have a Dream" segment of the speech, probably the most iconic speech in U.S. history by any human being, president, politician, preacher, singer. And it was all motivated by Mahalia Jackson. And just to add a little bit more to this, I can tell you that I know from my own personal family, I had a grandmother who didn't go to church very much. And my mother, her daughter, of course, went to church 4 or 5 times a week and dragged me with her, right? And it didn't matter if I was at my grandmother's house, my paternal grandparents' house, aunts and uncles who partied on the weekends, or people who were deeply into church. You went to a black home when I was growing up in the 60s and into the 70s, Mahalia Jackson's picture was on the wall, and her albums were in the collection. She is a foundational person in black American culture to this very day. And many of the vocalists that you hear out there unknowingly are imitating Mahalia Jackson's style.
Well, they say
great woman.
She had the greatest voice ever.
Absolutely.
You know,
powerful voice.
Yeah, she was connected with that spirituality.
Yeah, you know, I mean, the greatest voice ever, and it's a lot of singers out here.
Right.
A lot of them been out here, but she had the greatest voice ever.
Yeah, and she always told the truth.
Yeah.
That's why another reason they respected her.
Yeah. The lady I'm going to talk about is Miss Winnie Mandela, and we're gonna break it down in the future on some of our shows, but I'm gonna just tell a little bit about her because to me a lot of things and a lot of people don't like her, don't know what she's done, don't know what she did, and all these different things. But for me, one of the things that I can say, when Mandela died and when she died, they both still loved each other. And the thing about Miss Mandela is that Mr. Mandela was in jail 27 years and five or 6 months, you know. While he was in jail, she still carried on this thing of blacks trying to be free. You see.
Yeah, she was the backbone of the ANC.
Yeah. Yeah.
While he was in prison.
Right.
Yeah.
And
in fact, not to cut you off.
No.
In fact, the argument could be made easily that Winnie was much more militant about her political views than Nelson was.
Yes.
It was while Nelson was still in jail and the freedom movement in Southern Africa, because it just wasn't South Africa, it was
Right.
also
Yeah.
Rhodesia, which
Yep.
became Namibia, and Zimbabwe,
Mhm.
and these other nations that had this movement to throw off the yoke of apartheid.
Yep.
And Winnie Mandela knew that the function of the segregationists was highly aided by black people within the community
Mhm.
that made it their business, literally,
Yeah.
to tell what was going on
Yep.
within the movement.
Yeah.
And it was Winnie Mandela's men who started the tactic of what they called necklacing.
Yeah.
They would take somebody who was selling out, and they put a
that-
Firestone or a Goodyear
that
around them and
yeah,
light them
yeah.
on fire.
Yeah.
And brutal.
Mm-hmm.
But you saw a lot less cooperation with the police and with the segregationists after that tactic started than before. So you can be nonviolent and say it was objectionable, or you could be someone who said we're at war, and in war you do things that you normally wouldn't do. And Winnie had no hesitation
No.
at all
No.
to do what was needed to make sure that yoke was thrown off.
Right. And
Strong woman.
Right. And the thing is that while Mandela was in jail, her house was burned down, and it's at the same time she had 2 kids, and they had her in jail 491 days.
Absolutely.
You know.
And you're talking a young woman.
Yeah.
A very young woman.
Yeah.
I think she was in her late teens
Yeah.
when she and Nelson married and began to have
Right,
a family.
yeah.
So
16, I think.
Yeah. So she gave her life
Yeah.
for this movement.
Commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah. devoted.
So we're gonna get more into that on down the road. But you were saying
Well, I think
some of the other things that we into.
today is January 24th, and I think as we look at these days, we should look at each day particularly carefully, because it looks as if we may be on the brink of a major European war.
Yeah.
And if that happens, as all indications are pointing towards, a major land, sea, and air war with tanks, planes, bombs, divisions of troops, we could be looking at a catastrophe that the world hasn't seen in decades.
Right.
Certainly not seen in Europe since the 1940s. And if that happens, you're talking about a disruption to everyday life that people just aren't fathoming right now. I don't think people really thinking this through, because you know you're shipping from Amazon, your
gonna be a total
communication.
breakdown.
You're going to see exactly, Chuck. You're going to see a breakdown of
Economically.
society. Yeah, and very dangerous times. So if we can somehow turn this around, I mean the warring parties, it would be to the benefit of all, because what Putin is attempting to do, in my opinion, is to resurrect the old USSR,
Right.
the old Iron Curtain, and he sees the Ukraine as a key part of that. And, you know, he already took over Crimea, and he's looking to do even more of a land grab now. But the Ukraine wants to be part of the West. They want to be part of NATO. They want to have freedom. They want to be in the European Union. So this is coming down to a showdown. And today it was announced that Biden is and the NATO are moving troops and armaments into the area. So as we speak right now, it looks like it's becoming more and more fait accompli that there's going to be a war, and it's going to be a major war.
The last 4 or 5 days, they've been steady talking, but Russia's been steady moving troops in.
Yeah.
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 You know,
And not only that, if you go back to when Donald Trump was in office, remember how Russia got into the system?
mm-hmm.
You don't know what information that Russia got out to give him
Right.
that big head
Mm-hmm.
to go ahead and pull this thing off, what he's doing, you know?
Well, see, the thing is that Putin is just trying to, he's just trying to get more power and everything,
Flex his muscles.
and no matter what the talk is about, he's steady moving his troops in.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, for Putin, he's almost put himself in a position where his fish are cut bait.
Yeah.
Because it's a petrol nation. They don't have much in terms of natural resources and technical advantages
Right.
that other countries may want or
Same
run like
thing.
a company, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
But they do have a hell of a lot of oil.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, Germany has an agreement to run a pipeline from Germany into Russia,
Yep.
and they've got a agreement on natural gas. Well, one of the things that Germany has in their hip pocket is to say, look, man, we're gonna rescind that contract and not agree to buy your natural gas. That would be a huge economic
yeah.
blow to Russia. And Russia, on the other hand, is not going to let them walk away so easy. For them, it's almost like a zero-sum game. If we can't have it, you can't have
Right.
it. And I think Germany's aware of that position that they're in. And the same thing goes with the rest of the Western power. Britain is reluctant.
Yeah.
France is reluctant. So if you've got Putin bringing in tens of thousands of troops, multiple divisions
Yeah.
with tanks and planes and artillery to support them, and you've got a reluctant West that really doesn't want to go toe to toe, put its chin up in the
Right.
air and throw some with Russia. By the time Putin does what he wants to do in terms of penetrating into the Ukraine, it may be too late. And then you've got a whole new paradigm now. Is NATO relevant?
Right.
Do we have
China?
China's got the Olympics coming up. Is that going to influence how they intervene in Taiwan? Because you talked a big game, but when Russia did it, you didn't have the heart to back up with
Right.
your words.
Right.
So it's almost pointing to a place where we cannot see a way out of this without hostilities, and it's frightening.
Yeah, and China's got this rocket that goes Mark III, and it's been testing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's
Which is capable of carrying a nuclear warhead.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You
You better start growing that garden bigger, man.
the thing is that
See, a lot of people growing something, but it ain't the right stuff.
Right.
but you were saying that Putin just want to see what is power, and I was listening to the news. They were saying, well, they can do this and do this and do this, but it ain't gonna hate Putin. It hate all the people the people there.
Yeah.
But the things ain't gonna hate the people.
Well, there is. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, he's willing to make that sacrifice, but he's in the office for life.
Right.
Well, there is discussion among Democrats that the best way to handle this is to hit Putin personally. Hit him personally, because he has his money. He's an oligarch.
Yep.
Rubles.
And he's got his rubles all over the world in banks. And they said one easy way to do it is just take Russia and Putin off the SWIFT system, which is the way money's sent in Europe, and just take him off the SWIFT system, freeze his assets in places where they are personally, him and his oligarchs, not the nation, so to speak, but him personally, and let's see how he feels about it then. And again, the risk is if you hit him that hard, and you got him backed in the corner, that they say about a retreating animal, they'll back into that corner with their tail between their legs. But when they get in that corner and there's nowhere else to go, all of a sudden that back comes up and the teeth are bare. Do you want to put him in that spot?
Yeah.
Because there's a man who's telling you right now, I'm about to hit you,
and
I'm daring you to do something about it.
Right.
So it's a very tricky situation, and I am glad that We have a competent president with a competent administration.
Yeah.
Right.
If we still had Twitler in there, he'd be doing everything he could to abdicate U.S. power.
Yeah.
And acquiesce to whatever Putin demanded.
Yeah.
In turn for a little largesse in his personal bank account.
And I think that was the big plan. That's why he wanted Trump in there.
Well, of course, he knew he could manipulate Trump.
Yeah.
You know, Trump's got the IQ of this bottle here,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the morality of this tablecloth.
Yeah.
So it's a man who's perfect
Right.
for a dictatorial type leader like Putin. He can manipulate him easily.
Yeah.
But when you have NATO and the full military power,
Alliance.
faith, and credit of the United States backing it, and you got somebody on the other side that says, "I'm not backing down," it's a scary time.
Yeah.
And I hope people out there listening to the show are beginning to make decisions predicated on what may happen with this thing.
Yeah.
And Kim is taking a close look at it too. He's looking for a crack.
While he's smoking it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a little weirdo, dude.
The other thing is that right now we're stuck with these 48 Democrats are saying we're ready to vote for this, but we got two saying no. And this crazy woman from Arizona, she said, "Well, I agree with all of that, but I don't want the I don't want them to take away the filibuster."
Yeah.
And
But you know what's so objectionable about that is if she didn't know the history of the filibuster prior to last week and the week before, she should have learned it just from her own colleagues. You had Democrat after Democrat after Democrat go up there and make statements about the importance of passing voting rights,
Right.
the modern update to the Voting Rights Act, and explaining. I know I heard two different people explain the racist history of the filibuster, which was used in the 19th century to prevent black people from voting after the Civil War.
Yeah.
That was the nation's first filibuster. And here comes this heifer in 2022 saying, "Oh, we need to have Voting Rights Act and it should be unimpeded and we should have full access to the polls." But I just can't. I just can't sacrifice the filibuster. It's so important. Wait a minute. Just a few months ago, a few months before Biden came into office, the Republicans threw away the filibuster so they could nominate a Supreme Court justice. They did the same. The Democrats did the same thing when it came to federal judges. There have been 163 different exceptions carved out to the filibuster, where it's simply a majority count. The majority wins. And the way it's designed in the Constitution is you've got 100 senators. Whoever has a majority of the vote on the issue, that issue carries the day. The filibuster is an artificial construct. And it's always used to the disadvantage of the majority, who tend to be melanated and less affluent, and to the advantage of those who are not as well melanated and more affluent. It's always been used that way. And here she comes insulting our intelligence like we don't know the background that she's standing here talking about. She needs to defend it as if it's some type of important thing that came down from Mount Olympus. You know?
And they've always used that.
You know? And it's just she can stand there and say all these, and then we can't do. It's like, how stupid is this woman?
She's not stupid at all.
No,
she's paid.
She's using the car.
Well, I know she's.
Her and Joe Manchin are bipartisan in the way you spell buy, B-U-Y. They are bought and sold. But Joe Manchin's bought off by coal and oil.
And all the rest of them.
Right, and Sinema's bought off by an amalgamation of causes that she's willing to take their campaign funds. I mean, here's a woman who ran for the House just a few years ago, and I think her net worth back then was $13K. Anybody whose net worth is $13K is knocking on the door of poverty. You're living check to check, and that's not me trying to critique people like that. Most of us live that way, check to check. And now she's worth a couple $1 million. and her salary has never been over $200K.
Right.
Yeah.
How's this happen?
Right.
Everything
It's
is
corruption.
right. Yeah, everything is predicated on greed.
Yes.
Well, we look
Well,
at
go ahead, just flat out corruption.
Corruption. Yeah.
Because if I come to somebody and I say, you want a loaf of bread? You want a gallon of milk for your children? You want some bologna to put between that bread?
Yeah.
You got to commit a crime.
Yeah.
And they may say to you, nah, I got a job, I can get it myself. But if somebody who doesn't have means, they'll commit that crime. But see, she's got means.
Yeah.
She didn't have to do this.
Right.
So for her, it's beyond just a means to an end.
Yeah.
It is what you said.
Yeah.
It's
I'm gonna
greed.
get what I
She
can get.
wants that money,
Yeah.
Chuck.
Yeah.
Well,
She wants that big money.
Yeah.
She wants the Bentley. She wants
Yeah.
the mansion. She
Yeah.
wants the
Yeah.
ski
Yeah.
trips
She
in the
wants,
wintertime.
she wants to be in that secret organization.
Well,
Yeah,
And
man.
you know
She wants to
what?
be part of the club.
Yeah.
you know
Absolutely.
what? These
Greed.
other 4 years and something she has, she's gonna be there too. It's like mansion, man. I was telling somebody. Now, he makes probably $190,000 a year.
Plus another $500K from his
Perks.
Yeah.
$500K from his son's oil company.
Right.
A coal company.
Yeah, but this is the third election he's won in West Virginia, and I was reading something and they said now he's got $8 million and something,
Oh, yeah.
and he only now if you're only making 190 something or 200,000 a year, and all of a sudden you got eight
Yeah.
million,
Up the wazoo. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And the idea that it's legal
Right.
doesn't answer the question, is
How'd
it
you get it?
ethical?
Right.
Yeah.
Is it moral?
Yeah, yeah.
How did you get this?
Yeah.
Because your campaign contributions are set up in a way that I can't ask who contributed.
Right.
I can't ask how much. All you can do is tell me how much you got. And when you decide you're not campaigning anymore, that's your money.
Yeah.
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 And we wonder why politicians are bought and sold.
Right,
Right.
right.
It's-
And
it's
it's all about money.
Right,
Yeah. And
right.
once you become the middleman,
Yeah.
you got that control.
Yeah. Yeah.
know?
And you know, it's really
criminal. It's a
yeah,
crime.
Yeah. and the way Manchin is, man, it's like I'm, you know, I was telling Paget, you know, he's got 4 more years and something in there, man, and you never did hear about him until we got where we at now. You know, it's like, oh, it's only 50 in all Democrats. So now him and her are the 2 big people.
Same with Sinema.
Yeah.
Their leverage is being Republican light in the
That's
Democratic
it.
caucus.
Yes. Yes.
To throw a wrench in the monkey
Yeah.
works. That's
Yeah.
their leverage.
Yeah.
That's their claim to fame. That's what brings the money
Yeah.
in for them.
Yeah.
And you're looking at a situation now where, in the state of West Virginia, the 2 most popular politicians in West Virginia are Donald Trump on the far right and Joe Manchin ostensibly on the left.
Yeah.
But we know where his
Yeah.
heart
Yeah.
is. That's who runs West Virginia.
Yeah.
And so he won't have to change. And
No.
Sinema in Arizona, she's lost her base. In fact, they just voted last week to censor her.
Yeah.
And she started her career as a Green Party
Yeah.
progressive,
Yeah.
and now she's voting with the Republicans.
Yeah.
But she's got a brand new audience.
Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, you are too arrogant. If you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power. And I'll place it in the hands of a nation that doesn't even know my name. Be still and know that I'm God.